Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Nicholson, and I call this work session to order. Bear with me, this is my first meeting as chair, so I need to know the proper terminology. It is 2/11 on April 20th.
Great, and the first item up for business is ethics training Monday. Oh, let's do introductions first. So if we want to go around the table and do introductions, I'll start with Jim Hines, the election administrator.
Lisa Nicholson.
I'm Laura Lehman, member of the commission.
Dennis Ireland, member of the commission.
Lee Treadwell, a member of the commission.
I'm Bill Fonsi. I'm outside counsel for the clerk's office and the election staff.
I'm Pete Ennis, contract attorney for the assembly.
Jessica Willoughby for the Department of Law and Municipality.
Barbara Jones, municipal clerk. Ms. Ennis, I'd like to clarify, you have a contract with the clerk's office.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You have the power to shut everybody off. So the diamond shuts everybody off. Just use the speed button. Okay, and now I think we'll have Deanna start with ethics.
Okay. And my role in this is maybe a refresher, but part of it is I was an ethics attorney for the board for about 10, 12 years, was part of the rewrite. And then just recently, we had the conflict of interest disclosure section for the assembly rewritten, just put in a couple weeks ago. Not yet codified. My bringer of paperwork has not arrived, so the fortune to you is that it'll be a briefer discussion. This is now a lifetime together. So what they tried to do is the assembly, I don't know if any of you watched some of those assembly meetings, it's quite painful. They try to do disclosure, they don't know what they're doing. So first of all, it's meant to simplify that process. And you had 2-minute education last year, which that's very good. But so one of the things, okay, what is a conflict? What is an interest? An interest is almost anything that's important to you in any particular role. So you have a role as a school teacher. In your capacity as a school teacher, does that at all conflict with your role in your official capacity, what you're doing here as a commissioner? In traditional ethics sense, most conflicts are financial or personal. Financial being somewhat obvious, someone in your household benefits from your decision financially. Now, one of the things the ethics code does is it says it imputes the interest of anybody in your immediate family or household member to you or an organization. So if you're an employee, director, officer of a business, and that business would benefit from the action before you, there's a potential conflict. But what this last thing did was the code change did really said, let's simplify this, let's explain it better. Disclosures are what are important. You need to disclose things. With the assembly, it used to be quite someone made a 2-sentence disclosure, and then everybody else would try to guess at what they just said. So disclosures are important. Matthew has the new code section. I don't think I'm going to go through it too much. By the way, this Mr. Hurt, he's the new Assembly Council, Legislative Council, and has been with the city since about January. Smart guy. So anyway, but what I thought I would do is, in terms of disclosure, is really go back to what your role is here. And Matthew, do you have 28.1.20.030? That is the qualification of members. So this is of your commission members, because again, conflicts depend on your function as a public servant, as a board member. So qualifications, it says during your term, no member shall hold another elected or appointed public or political party office, endorse or engage in any political or campaign activity on behalf of any candidate, proposition, or measure in a municipal election or be employed. So when you make disclosures, we are particularly interested in these things. none of you hold other offices or political party office, I don't know, endorse or engage in any political or campaign activity on behalf of any candidate, proposition, or measure in a municipal election or be an employee of the city. So I think that's the critical one right there. Endorse or engage in any political or campaign activity on behalf of any candidate, proposition, or measure in a municipal election. And by the way, the qualifier on this is during your term. So it counts your entire term. Now, you also are considered election officials under the code. They have very similar to this. The clerk staff has an even much higher standard than just an elected official. They impose a whole segment of neutrality measures that's not been imposed on your issues. It's simply this campaign or political activity. A lot of the boards have this, ethics boards. When I was with the Associated Ethics Board, it's like, oh good, I don't go to any fundraising activities for the rest of my life. I'm actually quite thrilled with this. So as you do disclosures, we really like you to consider, that's your number one, campaign political activities and candidate endorsements. Have you done any of that? Now, I'm trying to think of how you could fall under more traditional ethics analysis, how you would have a financial interest in an election. I don't see that unless you or personal family. So the traditional ethics analysis, I think, is less easy to apply in the case. And that's why last year the disclosures went by so quickly, because there was nothing to disclose. But think of those things. And then I may follow up with some questions for you. And so I think, if you don't mind, are you Madam Chair or you are what, Jamie? Can I call you Jamie? Election Administrator Jamie, I guess. Yeah. Madam Election Administrator. Do you prefer I not call you that? If I think it would be helpful if we just went one by one, and all of you have been through this at least one time before. There are disclosure forms. Do you bring any of those this time? That you actually fill out a written, but I think oral is fine. And then I might, I'm really trying to think out loud, maybe I will just ask out loud. Let's just do this, it'll be easier. Have any of you contributed to a candidate in this election cycle? And the answer is uniformly no. Lauren?
In a moment of forgetfulness, when I was making campaign contributions to others, which is, I frequently do that, I mistakenly made a small contribution to a candidate on the municipal election. I almost immediately, when I discovered that I had done that, asked for my money back, and I got it. And so that was it. Yeah.
Can I ask, do any other members have any questions of Warren? And if it's okay, if I can call you by first name. Warren, does anybody else have any questions of that transaction? Because it's up to this body to decide if Warren has the type of conflict of interest that's substantial. And so here's another view. Is that a substantial conflict of interest? Or, you paid something to some candidate for some amount of money, is that substantial enough in your mind that he has a conflict of interest and can't participate in this process? So can I ask this? I guess we can just go, does anybody have that feeling that there's a substantial conflict of interest? Yeah. So would it be the ruling of this group that he should continue to participate and that that's not a substantial conflict? If we could probably say it on the record. Okay, so have any of you publicly endorsed, have any of you publicly endorsed any candidate during the term of this election? No TV ads. Okay. Have any of you participated in a fundraiser for a candidate? Okay. Okay, well then let's just go down the line. Can any of you think of anything else that comes along that line of, neutrality of an election official, but that you have participated in some campaign function?
I was asked to say by several candidates, and with every candidate or potential candidate, I explained I was on the commission and would not be involved at all. And I would say that some of these were candidates who were running against each other. I will say that when I was cleared to serve on this commission, I disclosed that I have a long-term unpaid state appointment to an interstate compact issue on a congressional matter or a constitutional matter. And I have been nominated to serve on an advisory committee to the U.S. Department of Transportation, which has not been formed. So I don't believe I have any conflicts.
Does any member of the commission have any further questions of me? Do any of you feel that presents a substantial conflict in terms of him participating in the balance of this evening? Okay. And nobody else has anything to disclose at this point in time. Okay. Now, I wanted to bring up one thing that came to my attention, and that was participation by two of the members in Preserve Democracy, fundraiser. And Preserve, I just learned about this morning, Preserve Democracy, I believe it's Ms. Shabaka's, I think it's primarily an anti-ranked choice voting. But I believe it says something about you two being co-hosts at a fundraiser at Bell's Nursery.
Yeah, that had nothing to do with this election or this. It has to do with statewide election policy.
Yeah, I was a co-host of that, and I'm not sure, my wife might have been also with me. Yeah, that had nothing to do with the municipal election.
So as far as you know, some of those candidates could have appeared, and that's, right of association. But as far as you know, that group doesn't funnel money to the municipal candidates.
I'll state on the record that I have no idea what the group does with its money. I was approached by a municipal candidate at that event, and I told him I would have nothing to do with his campaign. I can't even remember his name now, but yes.
Anything else to add, Lauren?
No, I don't remember who they might be, but I'm quite confident I was asked sometime during the election cycle if I would either co-host a fundraiser or do a public endorsement, and it's the same answer. I said I'm on the election commission, I can't.
So in balancing the board, do any of you feel that there is a substantial conflict of interest that either me or the board should not participate further in today's events? Well, with that, I have no further questions and the presentation is over.
Hey, Liz.
Well, you and Matt can stay with those and I'll go get your list. And
You mean who's happy?
what time, Matt? Okay.
13 duplicate ballots that were voted by voters. I have 12 of them here, and she is printing out the information for the 13th. So we have the ballot is attached, and then behind it is the image of the ballot that went through first. So we're ultimately asking you to reject these 12 and soon 13 ballots.
So you basically just take the first one, and say we're representing us, but you're
Correct.
In your opinion, is there a theme here, like, you know, I mean, I acknowledge forgetfulness, but in general, we think that's the theme, somebody just forgot they voted earlier?
I think that, and one of them, the question ballot, there's a note on there that they mailed their ballot back, only used one stamp, and went in and voted a question ballot because they were afraid that the first one wasn't going to make it. And we know that election mail gets returned to us regardless of the postage. So, so I believe it was just making sure and forgetfulness.
Now, if I could just add to my ethics presentation, which was brought up by something Lauren just said, is this commission has a number of types of roles. You're an advisory board, and you have all sorts of ideas of your own, that type of thing. But two is you do adjudication. So for instance, later tonight, I understand there will be a complaint. I don't know anything about it. I don't know who the parties are, but we might, once that is disclosed, look through disclosures you get, because that's more of an adjudicatory role, and you know the parties, etc., something like that. So that I think we'll revisit. With terms of adjudicating these ballots, if there's one that's contested, you recognize the name, it's a close family friend or business associate, you might disclose that. But that hardly even comes up in this stuff. But keep that in mind. And I remember, and the reason this came up, I did one last year, we were looking at those, all those ballots where they had witnesses, and the signature counted witness, and there were a couple of comments then that, well, wait a minute, I know this person, I know we would have done that. I don't know whether that's a problem or not, but keep that in mind, and you don't go out of your way to look at names, that's not the issue in most of these. But if it's a close friend or a business associate, keep that in mind. And again, later tonight, when we do look at one or two complaints, we should look at the disclosures as well. Thank you.
Through the chair, Jamie, is DBER, what does that mean? Just for DBNR.
Dropbox and Eagle River.
Got it.
Jamie, I noticed that on some of them, they voted, and then I think it was within about 4 days they voted again. And I can understand. I guess I can understand easier if they vote really early in the cycle and there may be some other circumstances. But are we at least going to let them know they voted twice and they shouldn't do that?
Yes, every ballot that is rejected by the commission will receive a letter as to why their ballot was rejected. So these people will be notified that their second ballot was rejected.
And in your letter, do you explain that a second ballot can't, once a ballot is received, you can't vote, even if you've changed your mind, you can't vote again, you can't pull your first one out?
I will make sure that the letter does explain that we are unable to pull the first one back out if they change their mind.
Madam Chair, I just say, I grew up in Connecticut where the law was, if you were, at the time, if you were in the state, you had to vote in person. And sometimes people had submitted absentee ballots and found out they were home and went to vote, and they were allowed to vote at the voting machine or in person. And then they pulled the absentee that had been received. So it's possible that people have had a different practice in other states, is all I'm saying.
So when they went and looked at the 13th that was in my hand, they found it was a different reason, so we've reallocated that, and so we are looking for 12 duplicates.
Is the motion in order at this point?
No, we'll be doing that after 5.
Thank you.
So my next step is the ballot return envelope was empty or contained other materials, and we have 3 of those. If these ballots were received in time to receive a letter, we would have mailed them a letter advising them that their ballot was empty and encouraging them to go. Oh, in an instance where they actually include the ballot in the envelope, since none was counted.
So each of these were received after Election Day?
There's notes onto them as to when they were received. I believe one was received on Election Day, so I don't think that we were able to provide that voter material, but if they were received before Election Day, then we do send a letter.
And we don't have voter emails as yet.
Correct, we don't.
This one has an email on it. As does this one. And that one has a phone number.
So I see the note on the one was discovered to be empty on the 5th, so that was after the election. I don't know when the other 2 were actually received. I have 21 ballots that were returned without a return envelope, and we were unable to identify the voter. And there are notes on many of them as to which Dropbox or they're usually Dropboxes that they were received at. So there are 21.
just fill out the ballot and check the box, just like this.
Jimmy, what does OM mean?
O'Malley.
A wonderful place, okay. They didn't take their sticker either in most cases. Jamie, the only question I have on the 21 is there's a note here that says 43, which is before Election Day, Stephen or Marilee Smith found on floor after they left Margaret Robin or Robinson or something. And this one was in the assembly, so it was a voting person. So is it possible that these were all voter error and this one was our own error of some kind or another?
So the voters are handed the envelopes, the secrecy sleeves, and the ballots in the ABCs, and they're instructed to go to the booths to vote. The chair of the ABC was just providing notes that they suspect that is who that voter could have been. And it was found on the floor, so it wasn't our fault. The voter did not put it in the envelope and did not put it in the ballot box. So, and they provided the note on April 3rd. It was received at the election center on the 4th, so we were unable to call them on the 4th to figure out what happened.
So that's good.
I have one ballot where the voter is inactive. This person voted a question ballot. Their condition code was ISD, which means that they're inactive and it was a felony conviction which has been dismissed. The voter had not re-registered to vote after their conviction was dismissed. And so the top sheet, which will be provided to the state, will be registering this voter, re-registering this voter.
Just a question on this ballot. Do you know when they were the dismissal happened?
I have 3 envelopes where there were too many ballots in one envelope. We have one with 2 full ballots and 2 of them with too many cards, as in there may be 2 card A's or 2 card B's. If we received it in time, these folks did receive letters advising them to go and vote again if they could. now I have 10 ballots where the voter is registered outside of the municipality. They're all question ballots. They went to an ABC. It appears that most of them, or it appears that they've all moved into Anchorage, and so the top sheets that are attached to those envelopes are provided to the state, and it does update their voter registration for the future.
These are all actually registered here. So this will change the registration to
At the time of voting, is their registration checked or not?
At the time of voting, they are looked up in our database, and our database is static from 30 days prior to election day. So when they don't show up in the database, they are
Question.
voted a question ballot, and then I review the question ballots to determine why they weren't in the database.
So Jamie, in this case, even if you got them in time, you wouldn't have sent a cure letter because there's no way to cure, is that correct?
Correct. The next ballot is the voter returned the ballot envelope and asked to be removed from the voter roll. And there's one.
So the person was already moved,
So the person was already moved out, so to speak.
It's my understanding they left a note on the ballot inside that they had moved out of state and asked to be removed from the list.
Okay. So they didn't vote, they just returned the blank ballot.
I don't know the answer to that. I didn't look at the ballot myself. I have 5 question ballots that we will, I'm going to ask to be rejected for registering too late. I've put notes on there when the voter registered on each of them. I have 15 ballots which were received too late. There's notes on each of them explaining the time that they were received and where.
8:02 PM, they could have taken it to the post office. Yes. I'm just saying, here's one at 8:02 PM, which is too late, but they could have taken it to the post office.
So our Dropbox workers are instructed to hand voters a form that says, you're too late. You can either give it to me here and I'm going to put it in this red bag and indicate on it that it's too late, or you can take it to a post office.
Yep.
And they choose to hand it to us and we write on it that it's too late.
What does LUSAC on slot?
The slots are shut at 8 PM on election night, and it's my understanding that the next day when the Dropbox team lead goes out to remove the damp grid and the fire stops from the Dropboxes, it was shoved into the slot, but was still hanging out of the slot when she arrived the day after.
James, just as a matter of procedure, if there's a line and it's 8 o'clock, you let them do it, but if there's not a line, you don't.
Yeah, it's a lot like a polling place. There is a line, and they're usually there about 7:30 or 7:45, so they're watching the line build up. So they stand next to the Dropbox and see who's all in line, and at 8 o'clock, anybody arriving after that time, they go put a sign on that last car in line, or stand behind that last car in line and let them drop their ballots, and then anyone after that is not.
Slid into a slot for people. So the only thing I note here for the record is that this one was dropped. He writes drop ballot at 8:03 p.m. I was told by library staff the Dropbox closed at 8:30 p.m. And it's a Girdwood. It was the Girdwood Library. So somebody, the public, told them something wrong, but anyway. Or they made it up. But we presume that person did not get the card that said you go to the post office, because the Girdwood post office is open. And do you give a card in Girdwood as well?
So it's my understanding that, so the drop-off is outside of the library, and so if the person went into the library to drop it off, then they missed our staff who was outside at 8 o'clock. I have 2 question ballots where the person is not registered to vote. They were not in the voter in drums, and so these top sheets will be provided to the state and will be registered them to vote. So I have 92 ballots that were postmarked after Election Day. They're in the black tray right there. They are rubber banded in groups of 25. And I can pass them around if you want to see them, or they're right there if not. Do you want to review the postmarks on these?
Jamie, can you review for us if somebody, when is the last time the mailbox is open at the airport post office? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that, no.
Depends on what day of the year. April 15th.
Yeah, on tax day, they're ready to take it. I'm just wondering if they got a card that said go to the airport post office and they drop it in the slot, if they, you know, if we gave them that information and said you need to go in and get it postmarked or something along those lines.
There was, I don't know, there was nobody there at the post office. I mean, there was no municipal clerk staff at the post office to advise them to go in. We do a lot of advertising, encouraging people to go in and get them canceled if they're voting the day of election, the day before election. This number was, I believe, 600 last year, so the fact that it's down to 92 this year, I'm extremely pleased with. states on the instructions on both the envelope and in the one that is the flyer that's handed to them if they're going to a drop box to get it canceled. Okay, the next one is the voter is deceased. So this one is the ballot return envelope, and the power of attorney indicated that the voter had passed away on March 20th, and
I assume you'll confirm that and then send this to the state, or you'll send it to the state, let them confirm it and remove the person from the voter list?
correct.
Yep.
If you can't confirm the death, would you count the ballot?
Well, I'm asking you to reject it, so if I can't, so I would not count the ballot if you guys rejected it.
Okay. Just in this particular case, I knew the person who died, and I knew the person who was the power of attorney, and they're my neighbors in Greatwood. And I trust this is accurate. And may he rest in peace. He was a valiant Marine.
So I have 36 where the voter failed to sign the ballot return envelope. These 36 people received cure letters, and here is where I will start telling you that for a completely different reason, we had to redesign our envelopes, and so now the voter is asked to provide their email or phone number right below their signature line. It used to be down at the bottom below the witness. So it's clear that having it closer to their signature line, a lot more people did put their email or phone number on there. And for the last week, staff who was sending the cure letters has also been calling and emailing everyone who provided the numbers, and so, or provided their phone number or their email address. And so there are 36 voters who failed to sign their ballot return envelope. And if you would like to look at them, I can have staff go get them out of the cage. They're not in our pocket here.
So of the 30, so this lot, which is in my accounting lot number 13, you say it's 36 total, and they were all people who didn't sign at all. And if you had emails, you did send them cure email. You sent them cure snail mail and tried to call them.
Or email, yeah.
Yep. So they put their email down but didn't sign it.
Yeah, if it was there.
Amazing. Okay, thank you.
I have 640 no sig matches on the ballot return envelope. that number is going to reduce between now and 5 o'clock. I feel sure that there are several cure letters over there, and they're going to go through them again and pull the ones. And I'm sure that that number is because we were calling and emailing through yesterday. So those 640 are there, and that number will change, but next I have 8 where there was no reference signature. We could not find reference signatures from the state of Alaska. We asked the state of Alaska if they have signatures for these voters elsewhere, and the state did not have them. We sent the letters to the voters, and then again, if they provided their email address or their phone numbers, we called or emailed them. And that number is 8, and I don't have them in my buckets here, but I can get staff to get them out if you would like.
When somebody comes, let's say they come here to cure and provide a signature, or, maybe your people, find that there wasn't a match and they provide the signature, does that new signature enter into their database? So in the future, it then becomes one of those, becomes a match?
Yes. So the letter asks them to provide 2 identifiers and sign another block. If they were to bring it here, we would check their ID. Instead of providing their identifiers, they might provide their ID instead. But when we change that signature to good in our system, we then take all of the good signatures and send them to the states to be uploaded into the database. So yes, that signature that was on that envelope does become a good signature for future reference. Yeah. So I have 6 ballots voted by someone other than the voter. A few of them have attachments where we can see that this particular one, the signature on the envelope looks like the signature of someone else's. Signatures that don't look at all like the voter's signature. And then one ballot is listed to go to Archie Stepp Jr. and Cindy, and we can't read her last name, so we can't determine if she was a registered voter or not. Crossed off Archie's name and signed it. So these are ballots voted by someone other than the voter.
So Jamie, you said one of them, should that have been in the previous lot where you had a signature, but it wasn't? It wasn't on the state database?
The ballot was specifically for Archie Stepp, and the voter crossed out Archie's name and wrote her own name, and so because we can't read her last name, we can't determine if she was a registered voter. If she was a registered voter and we could read her name, we could have changed the barcode, or we could have printed a new barcode for that voter, and
I know Archie Stepp. Is this Archie Stepp Jr.?
I don't, you can see it when it comes through, I don't remember.
both of these going to be rejected? Or just the one that is, looks like this one? This one looks like it was signed by this person. Is this person is going to be counted?
So we are asking to reject both of them. The signatures of the two people are on a piece of paper in front of you, so Diane and John. And
Oh, there's Diane's.
so that's their signatures, and that is clearly not Diane's or John's signatures.
Sorry,
And we believe they were voted by someone else.
They were both the same signature.
Okay.
Jamie, on this one, was a cure letter sent, or is it possible to cure it if, I know we had a statement, we're not really supposed to coach people about their signature, but this one looks very much like, at least that looks very much like that. So if Jessica signed for Joseph, it looks like Jessica signed for Joseph.
Right, it looks like Jessica signed for Joseph, and so Jessica's went through and counted. Joseph's did not, because it appears that Jessica voted for Joseph. So he was not sent a cure letter so that Jessica did not perpetuate the vote.
One of the signature pages.
So this is the one that the voter name is here. Oh, and the city signed and Archie stepped through here, so he's here. Name of the box off and somebody's sign. So that is not all Archie.
We can't count it for Cindy because there's no other identifier.
You don't know the person's last name. And Joanne Swenson crossed off and was signed for that person, and Joanne Swenson is not a registered voter.
Jamie or the clerk, can you remind us of the circumstance where we referred some ballots that appeared to be voted by somebody else for somebody else to city prosecutor to look at last time, and what happened with them and what was the circumstance?
There were a couple circumstances. There was one circumstance where it appeared that a mother had made a mark for several children and then witnessed. There was a situation where it appeared that there was two X's and a witness by a person. It was all in the same ink, the same pen. It was a fine point pen. It looked suspicious, so we rejected them. I think there was another situation where a voter had voted in person, or a voter had voted a replacement ballot and also voted in person at a vote center. We referred them to the prosecutor. APD went and knocked on their doors, and in the situation of the pen looking, it was the same blue fine point pen that was signed, that did all the markings, was parents who had forgotten their ballots on the kitchen counter and went to Arizona and asked the son to vote the ballots and mark X and sign for them. So the case of the mother who had made a mark and signed and then witnessed for the children, that was the case, and they were advised that's not the appropriate way, that the kids need to request a ballot to be sent to their temporary address when they're away at college. And then the person who voted at both the ABC and voted a replacement ballot also was advised, the ballots do make it through. You shouldn't vote twice. So APD went and knocked on all of their doors. Most of them seemed like it was a misunderstanding of rules, and so we didn't take it any farther.
I'm not going to say the names out loud just because but I would recommend that something similar happen with this one. The others look fairly, they could come in with I'm not sure what the cure process would have been there, but anyway, this one in particular might be something. I would probably argue for rejecting them all, but at least in this case, figure out what happened. It sounds like a very similar situation.
Okay. I will also add that I met with the prosecutor and the municipal attorney, and we had wanted to do a press release that had indicated that you had referred to the prosecutor and that nothing was found to be fraudulent, but reminding people of the proper rules. And we were turned down. So,
who turns down press releases?
the chief of police. He supervises the
Okay.
process.
Yeah, I think you told us 6 and there were 8 ballots there. For the big guy.
Okay.
I may have miscounted them, so.
So there was no answer.
9.
I have 2 ballot voted by power of attorney.
whole story.
There is a way to keep it.
The funny thing is, there was 3 of them in there, and I looked at the third one, and that's exactly what happened, so it's right there, so. You only cure one.
So, in the case of one, I think I know the other, in the case of one, I know this person very well. I had dinner at their house this past week. I guess the question is, I know that the voter is,
Excuse
if
me.
there's a conflict.
Can I, Ms. Ennis, can you help me determine if he has a conflict on this one? Can you ask him the question? He just made a disclosure that he had dinner with someone. Sure. So
No,
before he-
I'm very happy to disclose, this, the person who signed this is,
Mr. Treadwell, you shouldn't say anything about the envelope. You're just making the disclosure, right, Dee?
well, there's actually a question after the disclosure, so let me make the disclosure.
Disclosure, yeah.
Okay, there is a voter who signed as attorney in fact for a disabled voter. Okay. I will disclose that I worked with that voter for most of my career. I lived in his house when I first came to Alaska, and I had dinner with the attorney the other day. So I'm not the best advocate for it, but I guess the question that I have, I'm very happy to recuse myself from voting on this particular one, but what is a person to do if it, in other words, they didn't sign an X. Yeah, that's the
We need to
question.
make a ruling on whether or not there's
A
a
conflict.
conflict.
And I don't think I have any additional informational disclosure questions, so
Yeah.
we'll just go back to the body. Do you think there's a close enough personal relationship here that Mr. Treadwell should recuse himself, or you believe he has some type of conflict of interest? Because I think you're really getting at it more a question about how would you handle it? How should the situation be handled?
Maybe I should put it this way. I'll make the disclosure. You guys can determine whether it's a conflict of interest, but yeah, I guess I would say that if I were this person, I would argue that that ballot should be counted. That's all I'm saying.
And if I could suggest to the rest of the commission, do you think Mr. Treadwell's relationship with a long-term friend and his other attorney will, present some type of bias such that he should not participate in this particular determination? And do you have any further questions on that matter?
I believe he has the tools to exercise the proper judgment on this, notwithstanding the relationship. I know the people as well. My relationship probably isn't as close, but nevertheless, it's been a long time. And this is Alaska. We lived here all my life, have friends for a long time. And I would just trust him to exercise proper judgment and follow the law.
Any other questions? And that, by the way, is a line of questioning that often is pursued by the Ethics Board. Do you believe that you can hold your duties as a commissioner over your personal interest in this matter? So, Mr. Treadwell.
Yeah, I believe I can. I guess I'm advised by the city clerk to stop. It is up to you guys to decide.
Exactly. So then, after everybody decides, then you get to talk.
And so then it's back to the board, and maybe I leave that to the chairperson to ask if a vote whether you believe Mr. Treadwell should be recused or continue to participate on this one particular ballot.
which is presented, I guess, are there any objections to Mr. Treadwell voting on this rejection or not, based on his conflict of interest disclosure? Hearing no objections, I think we proceed as well, and allow him to ask his question.
I'm going to ask the question in as objective a way as possible. Is this rejected because rather than signing his name and power of attorney, she should have had him make an X if he were able to make an X, and then completed the rest of the envelope as she did?
That is correct. State, federal, and municipal law prohibit powers of attorney from voting ballots for people. She signed the disclosure that says that she voted the ballot. So it is, the disclosure is underneath the seal of the envelope, but it says that they have, I am the person that I say that I am, and I have voted this ballot. And so this person is saying that they have voted the ballot.
Unfortunately, in the last year, Madam Chair, I watched my mother and my mother-in-law both go to their high arrest, and I know that this person cannot make a signature, or I presume. I actually don't know that. And I signed many things as power of attorney for my mother while she was alive. And I guess the question is, because he didn't make, he may well have voted. I've had, he's at the stage of his life where his memory loss is, pretty strong, but he still knows what he believes, at least in the last conversation I had with him. So I'm just kind of curious. I think this is one where if an X had been made, that's fine. If she signed for him and filled out the ballot for him, people do that for disabled people all the time. So I honestly don't see what was done wrong. So if the ballot's rejected because she wrote his name down rather than had him make an X, that's the confusion, and the power of attorney is there. I don't. The other one didn't claim to be power of attorney. It just said it's the grandson for the voter. And again, the presumption may be that he was talking to the voter and voted out for him because he was disabled. So I'm just these two really have to do with. I mean, when my wife was dying of a brain tumor, I witnessed her X, but I did fill out this was 20 years ago now, 22 years ago. But I did help fill in the circles for her at her request.
Filling in circles for a voter is not against the law. Voting on behalf of the person is prohibited by law. It does say right there in the yellow voter sign below required, and it does say that
power of attorney is not acceptable. Okay. In that case, I wouldn't challenge it.
So it says, I state and declare as true that my name and signature or mark are shown on this envelope, and that I am voting the ballot provided to me by the municipality of Anchorage and not casting any other ballot in this election. And so that is what we have to go on, is that they say that they voted the ballot. And so
they actually didn't say that they voted the ballot. They said that they did the signature. It says signed by attorney, in fact. It doesn't say, actually the signature was a signature for him, done by the power of attorney, but it was signed by, but it didn't say that she voted.
the law says that they can't do that. So the correct is an X. And the information about that is also included in the letter that they get upon rejection.
May I see the
I have one ballot to be rejected that was a previous election ballot, envelope and ballot.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Previous election.
Was it from that precinct where the mail wasn't delivered on time that you?
Through the chair, I have asked Mr. Treadwell to please be careful about spreading disinformation, and that although you are making a joke, that is disinformation, Mr. Treadwell. We provided information to you regarding information about that precinct. There was no difference in the number of ballots delivered to that precinct. Please be respectful of the staff and our efforts to do the best that we can in these elections.
I apologize for the comment, and I should have used the word allegedly, and I agree with you, and we did support you, and I do support you on that issue when it came before us, and I apologize.
Thank you.
So the last one I have is the other category, and I have two. I have an electronic ballot that was applied for by it's my understanding that Mrs. Sedgwick requested the ballot, and John Sedgwick voted the ballot. And so we don't have an application for this person requesting an absentee by email. And in this situation, it looks like this ballot was voted by someone other than the voter. There's a mark made with the same pen as the witness signature. Jim, in the case of the Sedgwicks,
Did Debbie Sedgwick vote by some other means? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, because.
Right now, between now and 5.
Okay, yeah, if you can, because, I don't, I mean, Judge Sedgwick is, also lives in our neighborhood, and he was a judge, and Debbie was a commissioner. I don't always agree with him, but I trust him in this case. And I guess what I'm wondering is, probably he should have fallen in for the ballot rather than she should have if she was trying to help him. And if he's disabled, the question is whether or not she can call in, and there was a confusion about who had asked for it or why it was asked for. So,
I can also get out the application for the meeting itself.
okay, thank you.
So on that one, she requested the ballot and he wrote it out.
That's correct.
And why can't you count it for him? If you vote?
In order to vote by email, you need to apply. The code says that you have to apply for a ballot by email. And so he did not apply. She did. And the ballot came back with him.
Yes, apply for his own ballot.
An application needs to be received for him.
And through the chair, this is exactly like the rules for the state of Alaska. So if you request an absentee ballot with the state, and if my husband votes the absentee ballot that the state mailed to me, the state won't count it. It's the exact same rule.
But in the case, or at least in the way Jamie explained an earlier case where somebody crossed out somebody's name, but we didn't know who Cindy was because of the way she did it, would you have counted it? I mean, is a ballot or the ballot is, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but you can mix up the ballots in your household. The ballots can go in, can't they?
Through the chair, the rules are different because you're emailing. When you're mailing, we know that there's no interference typically in a mail ballot that's going to an address and coming back. But with email, because you're swearing that your ballot won't be private, and without applying for an email ballot, you're not signing that special affidavit that goes with email because it's different. And because we don't have emails on file in the state of Alaska voter registration database, so we're not sure who's getting that ballot. So for all of those reasons, the rules are much stricter for email ballots, much like they were for absentee voting with the state, and that's why the rules are stricter.
In this case, the ballot was emailed out, but it was received from Phoenix, Arizona in an envelope that was properly postmarked in time to vote. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I guess you could say that I checked my mom's phone too, so. But I guess the law is the law. It states specifically that email ballots have to match the rest. On this You said that the check mark was the same pen as the witness. And surely that's not why it was rejected.
On the paper, you can see that voter's signature. So the voter's signature is here.
Okay, but
And this is, it appears that the witness voted the ballot, did the check mark, and witnessed. It was the same situation as the one we had last year that ended up going to the prosecutor. It's the same pen. It's just has the appearance of.
I should recall this, the person was sick or incapacitated for a week for whatever reason. Couldn't actually sign. Are you saying that because this is not a wobbly signature or something that might be an elderly person or incapacitated somehow with the check mark, they can't be?
So the voter was born in 2003.
Oh. I can see your point, it's just, I can also see where even a 20-year-old can be incapacitated for the time and make sure pens. So just based on that pen was the same, I don't think necessarily discounts, completely discounts a forged voter signature. At least not knowing the medical history of the 20-year-old.
I didn't notice the date on them, but would they have been sent a fewer letter?
They were not. When it's suspected that it's a fraudulent situation, we don't send her letters.
Yep.
We review all X signatures or mark signatures with the observers, and when we did that, we said that that was our suspicion, and that we wanted to take it to the commission, and they agreed with that determination.
Yeah, so Madam Chair, just, on this particular issue, if it was checked instead of X, Are we rejecting this because of the check? Because otherwise everything else seems to be in order. I mean, at least the circle at the end of the signature, the R is the same kind of Roy Rogers R. The tail and the end of Roy is the same. The A is slightly different.
I'm not worried about the witness signature.
Okay.
The mark, and I don't care what mark they make, if it's an X or a squiggly line or whatever.
Right.
It just appears to be in the same pen and written by the same person as the witness.
Well, I sometimes hand my pen to the person next to me if I've got to sign something and they've got to sign something. In all honesty, Madam Chair, I can't, unless, because assuming that this was an appropriate X, I mean, and we don't know if the person is too old, too young, incapacitated, or whatsoever, but we have to assume it's an appropriate X. It appears to be witnessed properly. So,
So when we come to it at the meeting, you can order it to be counted.
right.
That is
No,
your-
no, I understand that. And I'm not questioning your judgment. I'm just saying I don't see what's out of order here. Thank you. That was not an electronic ballot on the second one, is that right?
That's correct. So that is all we have for you for the work session. It's 4 o'clock. We can adjourn the work session and I believe we have food in the kitchen for a dinner break, and then we will reconvene at 5 o'clock for the meeting.
Thank you.
Without objection.
Yes, I'm glad we have all our.
Do we have any objections to ending the work session? Hearing no objections, we are adjourned until 5 o'clock.